2020, I was doing a live TV interview and fruit was thrown at me unannounced, one of which was a banana. And there's a long history of throwing bananas at black athletes, at black people. Yeah. And the racial implications behind that are that we're monkeys. And so I already knew this when the fruit was thrown, when I caught the banana, all of that. And instead of like throwing a banana back or like cursing everybody out, one, I didn't want to get broken on live television. So kept a smile on my face. They cut the cameras off. I left the newsroom immediately. And I just thought about like, how do I want to handle this?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, Off the Cuff, where conversations lead to inspiration. I'm your host, Christian Palmer, and today I'm joined by activist, artist, entrepreneur, and professional athlete from the Harlem Globetrotters. He was a semifinalist in the ESPN College Slam Dunk Competition. He became the first Division III basketball player to be fully featured in 2 video games, NBA 2K and NBA Live. And he was honorable mention nominee for the Can't Stop Watching Moment of the Year ESPYs Award. He's been featured by CNN, GQ, CBS, Bleacher Report, SportsCenter, the list goes on. My next guest is inspiring the next generation of young athletes on and off the court. It's a conversation you don't want to miss. So without further ado, here's Off the Cuff with Maxwell Pearce. Max, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me, bro.
Absolutely, bro. Like, that's a beastie bio, man. You've accomplished so much and so early on in your career. It's amazing to see. When you, like, reflect, did you ever imagine yourself being where you are today?
You know, it's crazy. Like, when I was younger, I was super shy. So I don't think I ever would have envisioned myself in a place where I would be speaking in front of large crowds at any point or doing anything in front of a large crowd. Like even, like I love to play basketball, but sometimes large crowds make me nervous. So I think for a lot of that to come full circle and for me to be able to be in these super large spaces and get comfortable is probably my proudest like accomplishment, because it's definitely kind of filling that void that I had when I was a kid.
That's beautiful, man. And it's crazy, though, because I want to lean on that, too, right? From the early upbringings, right? Basketball. Like, where did that first come into the picture? Like, where was this thought, this idea of basketball? Like, walk us through that journey, where it was first introduced.
I feel like my first basketball interaction was probably like a Fisher-Price hoop that my parents bought me when I was like 4 or 5 or something like that. And I don't know if it was like a Christmas gift. I don't know how it ended up in the house, but we used to live in Mount Vernon. And so, yeah, I had to be like 3 or 4 years old at the time. And I just remember like here and there shooting on this little Fisher-Price rim.
Wow. You was making them? You remember?
Honestly, I don't even know.
Bro, but we got to look at the footage.
Yeah. But I know that my dad, he never played organized ball, but he always loved the game. And so eventually it got to a point where I was interested enough to be like, all right, let me test out hooping. So I think it was 5th grade is when I first joined the actual school team. And it's been up ever since.
You know, going back to some of these early memories, do you feel like going to the league was also like an ultimate goal for you?
Yeah. My grandmother she's been an educator. She's 90 now. She's been an educator for maybe 70 years, 60 something years. So she's really big on like school. And I remember early on, maybe like 4th grade, 5th grade, had to be at least 5th grade. She asked me, what did I want to do when I grew up? And I was like, I want to be an NBA. And she shot that down like crazy.
Really?
Shot it down. She was like, you need to get some kind of education or some kind of expertise in something. And she's always been really big on like fighting a good fight, which is basically, you know, fighting against issues that directly affect our people. And so I got to give her credit for instilling that fire in me about those issues. But in regards to me wanting to get to the league, she shot that down pretty early. So in a way, I kind of thank her for it because it allowed me at a much earlier age to develop other passions. So that I wasn't like stuck and I don't know what to do now when it was time to put the ball down. Thankfully, ironically, I'm still playing. But either way, like I knew from a very early age that I wanted to go to the league, if not play professionally. So at least I'm still playing professionally, and I'm doing what I love.
And I'm learning a lot more about new passions because I know basketball was like the first love, right? But then you also fell into art very early on as well. Like when was that introduced for you?
It's crazy that you say that because it was at the exact same time.
Wow.
Like, I remember I had a teacher in middle school. Her name was Miss O'Connor, and she was incredible in her ways of getting us to see the importance and the value and the potential impact that art could have. So she had us do one activity, and it was like, draw a picture of the person next to you. And I feel like a lot of the times we're growing up drawing pictures of ourselves. But this particular activity, she was like, draw a picture of the person next to you. And so everybody did their picture, gave it to each other, and everybody was so much more appreciative of somebody else taking their time and effort to draw a photo of them.
Wow.
And it kind of showed that like you can have such an impact on the people around you with your art. And so I think that in combination with, she had us do another activity where we all drew like some kind of photo of what it meant to go to that particular school. And my photo got chosen to be the cover of the yearbook.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first introduction to how many people you could impact at one time with a piece of artwork. And at that point, I was hooked. But it was at that same time where I was talking to my grandmother about exploring other passions that I realized, okay, art is another passion of mine that I thoroughly enjoy. And it's crazy because I would say from maybe 5th grade, she was like, I think you should be an architect.
Wow.
And architects they draw all day. They design, they come up with ideas of, how to create infrastructure that is supportive, but it's also appealing. And so, there's a really big artistic element in architecture. And while I thought about it, and I like math, but I never got far enough down that path to actually pursue architecture. Even though my dad is a contractor, so he works with architects all the time. But I just think it's funny that my grandmother's kind of influence and bullying at sometimes, but all of what she has given has been out of love and nothing but love. So I think a lot of that has contributed to the athlete and the artist that I am now.
That's amazing, man. I'm glad you're able to kind of make those two connections there. And I'm curious to know, because we definitely want, the audience who are tuning in today, learning a little bit more about what they can tangibly, like, advice, anything that you would share with them. So my question to you is, when you're thinking about the next generation of young athletes, the next generation of young artists and stuff, what will you share with them about whether it's focusing on just one career path or having a multitude ideas of things that you could possibly do? Because they say sometimes, don't put your eggs all in one basket, right? Or they say, don't have a plan B because plan A won't work, right? So you kind of get on both sides. So what would you share from that perspective?
So my first thing is like, why does plan A only have to include one thing? I feel like by default, the plan A, plan B route is kind of one-dimensional, and it pigeonholes you because it's like, nah, you shouldn't be focusing on doing this as a backup because that means you really don't have the confidence in your primary thing to be successful. And so my thing is always like, well, what if my plan A is I want to be a hooper and an artist and an actor, for example. Like, these are all passions that I've developed from a very young age. Why can't I be successful in all of them?
Right.
So that's always been my thing, and I think the earlier that you can get exposure to everything, the quicker you'll find out what you like and don't like. And what you like and don't like is your blueprint for your direction in your life. It's really that simple. Like, I have a lot of friends who are working and they're making good money, but they don't like what they do. And they're dreading going to work. They're miserable about it. And it's like, like, I don't know. I don't personally believe that the money is valuable enough for me to be miserable, even if I'm making a lot of money. I would rather enjoy what I'm doing, not feel like I'm working, and then eventually make the money from that. Right. So yeah, I don't really agree with the one way or no way. I think your one way can encompass 3-4 different things. Whatever it is that makes you go and gets you up in the morning and you really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I like to believe the same thing too. Like, they say that, once you're doing the things that you love, the money will come and you're affecting and serving as many people as possible and stuff, and it's amazing to see that from you early on, drawing the person next to you, ultimately getting chosen to be the cover of the yearbook, and now inspiring millions of people across the globe is such a phenomenal thing, right? But before we get into the art pieces, kind of what you're creating today, I know there's been a lot of pivotal moments, especially growing up, that, again, like you said, grandma put that fire in you. I would like to also think a lot of these experiences did the same.
Yep.
So walk us through some of these experiences that you had where you were racially profiled growing up, especially, I think you mentioned in a lot of your other conversations, as early as high school days. Walk us through some of those experiences and what you were feeling at those moments.
So my earliest memory that was really, that really stung, that really stuck with me was probably in high school. Long story short, the teacher was supposed to hand out a state test, didn't hand it out correctly. Basically, like, put it in my bag. Whoa. And so after doing that, I went throughout school the whole day, came back to school the following day, and they asked me, did I have this test? And I didn't even know what it was because it was already in my bag. And so I was like, yeah, you search my bag if you want. So they searched the bag, found the test. It was still wrapped in the plastic that they had it wrapped in. So you could tell it wasn't opened. It was unopened. So they were like, go to the principal's office. So I went to the principal's office, and the first 2 questions that this principal asked me were, do you have a criminal record? Whoa. Do you have a history of theft? And I was like, I don't know why you're asking me this. I think I have an idea. I don't want to jump to conclusions. But the error in this whole situation is that the test, first of all, it wasn't even meant for the people in my classroom, including myself. It was supposed to be given to the students that were gonna come in after the bell rung and everybody left. Wow. But either way, it was really apparent that, like, one, he didn't need to ask me those questions because I wouldn't be in that school if that was the case. So I think he really just wanted to stick it to me. So that was one. And then 2, it was just apparent to me that, like, those are that's where people's minds go in
automatically
situations like this. Wow. Yeah, it just could have been a totally different situation that was handled, where it was like, you're talking to a 15-year-old kid who clearly that your staff member messed up, even when you look at the circumstances in general. But that was one of the things that really, really opened my eyes. Like, wow, okay.
And what did you do after that?
I don't get the same leniency. I thought about leaving the school, and eventually I did. Eventually I left that school. After some other experiences that I had in that school as well. Another one was like, I was at one of my friends' houses, and we were playing, I don't know what game we were playing. We were playing basketball though.
Yeah.
And he lowered the hoop because none of us could dunk at the time. And so it's me, him, and another kid. The other two kids, they don't hoop. So I was the only person that actually played basketball. So naturally I was winning. And this kid, he's a white kid, just got so frustrated that he was just like, you N-word monkey, like just threw it out there. And I remember like freezing and thinking like,
wow,
if I beat this kid up, mind you, I'm 40 minutes away from home, can't drive yet. So I'm like, if I beat this kid up in his backyard, I'm 40 minutes away. Uber was not a thing at the time. How the hell I'm gonna get home? So I somehow mustered the self-control to not beat him up. And I just gathered my things. I called my people and they came and got me. And that was that on that friendship.
It's just crazy.
But it just showed me that like people can get to such an emotional state where it's just like the first thing they think of is, how can I really hurt, like what can I say to really, really hurt this person? And that's what he thought of. And my thing is like, there are certain things that are off limits and there are certain things that are fair to say. And that just clearly was out of bounds. Yeah. So, you know, those two instances definitely stuck with me. And in a lot of ways, like I think about them a lot because there was a lot of things that I wanted to say in that moment that I didn't say in those moments. Partially because I was really mad, and I don't know if I had the wherewithal to actually verbally respond. Like there were just so many emotions going at the same time that I was like frozen. So I think to go from that kid that didn't really know how to respond in the moment to who I am now, and knowing that I got to check those things at the door, that this is such a big difference.
Yeah, man. Wow. And I really appreciate the transparency there, you know, because it's crazy that, you know, sometimes they, you know, my mom always says this too, you may know people by the face, but you don't know them by the heart.
Right.
You know, and it's moments like this where you thought your boy was your boy, but in instances where they want to, you know, deem you in a way that are just really affecting you on all personal levels, you know what I'm saying? And that's unfortunate that you had to even go through that. But the fact that you were so connected in these moments, right? Like you were able to catch yourself in certain moments before, like where did that come from?
Honestly, I feel like it's just coming from being a shy, non-confrontational kid. Like when I was young, I would do everything in my power to avoid confrontation, even when I was done wrong. And honestly, I feel like that's where I fault myself a lot, because there were times where like people had just been so foul and I was just like, I would just internalize all of it.
Wow.
And so sometimes, you know, that's more internally damaging. But I think in turn, it taught me the self-control that I need to never get out of character. Like, one thing I can say is I don't think I've ever been brought to a point where I've just lost control of myself. So, you know, I kind of had to learn that the hard way, but I'm glad that I'm at a point now where I can always think about how I want to react to something before I react, even if my reaction comes days, months, weeks later.
Wow.
And to give you the biggest example in my life of that, 2020, I was doing a live TV interview, and fruit was thrown at me, unannounced, one of which was a banana. And there's a long history of throwing bananas at black athletes, at black people. Yeah. And the racial implications behind that are that we're monkeys. And so I already knew this when the fruit was thrown, when I caught the banana, all of that. And instead of like throwing the banana back or like cursing everybody out, one, I didn't want to get broken on live television. So kept a smile on my face. They cut the cameras off. I left the newsroom immediately. And I just thought about like, how do I want to handle this? And it took me a while to figure out how I wanted to actually handle that situation. But ultimately, that birthed the collection of artwork that I just displayed in Miami. And I think that that collection of artwork was louder and more powerful than anything that I could have said in the newsroom at that moment. And all of the people that were watching that segment as the fruit was thrown, I think that it was more impactful to respond the way that I did rather than just throwing the banana back. They don't learn anything from that if I just throw it back. They just know that it upset me. So,
wow, man, that's so beastie, you know. And I did see the tape, and I also saw the response as well, right? And like you mentioned, it took you a while for you to really get your thoughts, accept your thoughts, and speak up in this manner. What about that process from that moment that it happened all the way until you get in front of the camera and speaking about it? How did you find that courage in between?
So I will say I always had the fire instilled by my grandmother at a younger age. But I think there's another important piece that needs to go along with that fire, and it's got to be the willingness to speak up about it. So for me, when this happened, it was in the beginning of 2020. I decided not to publicly address it immediately because I didn't want to lose my job. And then the next 6 months, we had Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd. And at that point, I was like, I don't really have a choice but to publicly denounce and address all of these crazy things that are happening to us because our ancestors, like, they died for things far less, like drinking from the wrong water fountain or going to the wrong bathroom, you know, like stuff like that. So as crazy and as traumatizing as this fruit experience was, like, my physical being wasn't in jeopardy. Like, I didn't get physically harmed. Like, and so when I think about the comparison of what our ancestors had to go through just to get us to, you know, do stuff like this, there's no way that I could be silent anymore. So at that point is when the wheels really started to turn in my head that, like, okay, I got to step it up.
And it's like bigger than you.
It's big. Exactly. It's bigger than me. And the only way that the people after me can live a better life is if I continue the same approach that the people before us had, which was, it's not going to happen in our generation, but I got to continue to push the needle for the generations that are after us.
Yeah, and I want to lean on that too, because I know community, speaking to the next generation is super important to you, right? And we saw some of the tapes where, you know, you're in front of all these kids and you're talking about education and preparation as two of the big pillars, right? And community is so important, like I said to you. Now, what advice would you share to the people who, you know, may have these or may experience these microaggressions or these racially being profiled in many instances, who may not necessarily know where to start or to begin to advocate for themselves? Or oftentimes we may think it's not even worth addressing. Like, what would you share to the people who may be experiencing that right now?
So that's the vicious cycle of racism, and especially as it pertains to microaggressions. It's so vicious because when it happens, it freezes you. And then you spend the next 2 hours, 2 days thinking about, did he really? Nah, he didn't say that, or he didn't do this.
Or he didn't mean
or
it. Like,
he didn't mean it that way. And so it's taxing. It's emotionally taxing. And a lot of times, like we're still so ignorant. When I say we're, I mean like everybody as a whole. Like most people are not equipped with the knowledge or the expertise of the intricacies of microaggressions to know like where the problem lies in a statement. And so it's hard because at one end, if you address it, a lot of times it happens in a workplace. So if you address it and it's by a boss or a colleague, you run the risk of getting fired. But on the other end, if you don't say it, then it's going to be picking at you until you do. And so that's why the cycle is so vicious. But my advice would be to talk to the people around you who experience the same microaggressions. Talk to them first. Find validity in your feelings, because everything that you're experiencing and feeling is valid. And it helps when you can realize that, oh, like you're dealing with the same things, you're dealing with the same things. Right. All of these people are experiencing the same thing. So I'm not crazy when I'm thinking about, did he really mean it like that? Or why is this making me feel that way? That would be the first thing, is making sure that you understand your feelings are valid and justified. The second thing would be really just to think about how you want to address it. But as long as you address it, then I think you're doing yourself a favor and everybody else a favor, because the more times that we let these things go, the more comfortable people who are the perpetrators of these microaggressions are going to feel to do them again.
Right.
So I kind of feel like we should check things at the door, but if you feel like there's a more impactful way to address it, let's say 2 days later, you decide you wanted to address it after you've figured out some plan of action to do so, then maybe that's the way. But bottom line, I think they should be addressed.
Yeah, man. Bro, you're so beastie connected. You know what I'm saying? And I love that, how connected you are with just your feelings, your emotions, the way you're able to conceptualize them, you know, and put those out to the world, right? Because it's like a healing process.
Yeah.
Right? You know, do you feel now that you were able to speak up on many of these unfortunate situations, you know, that you experienced? Do you feel like it's also been a form of healing for you on the other side?
For sure. I think, you know, a lot of personal work has come through the last 3 years or so. You know, I think that fruit experience was one of the biggest teachable moments that I've ever had in my life. On a lot of fronts, you know, I got crazy messages, death threats from people when I decided to speak out about that incident. It really opened my eyes to just how racist and negative the world still is, and how much work we still have to do. And then on the same front, it showed me how much stronger I was than I thought. Like, you know, like people were coming at me again, like with craziness. And like at a certain point, I was a little paranoid about like going outside and like posting my whereabouts. But I think that, you know, my ability to still be vocal about these things, even though people are, you know, coming at me in that way, really proved to myself that I'm a lot stronger than I think. And so I think that, in combination with, you know, just personal work, whether that is through therapy or just having important conversations like this with a lot of my friends, with a lot of my teammates, my family members, it's definitely showed me a different perspective, and ultimately brought a different approach for me as I'm kind of viewing a lot of these issues and encountering these issues in my personal life.
That's beautiful, man. And like, you know, you mentioned on therapy and stuff. What's one of the biggest lessons you feel like you took away from that experience so far?
Yeah, I think therapy. I've never been somebody that's like, nah, therapy is for weak people. Yeah. But at the same time, I've never been somebody that was like, maybe I need that. And I've never had super low lows, but I was surprised, like, the first time I ever like had, maybe it was probably like 4 sessions in, I was like, I didn't know I needed this. Like, therapy has allowed me to learn myself, because we're not equipped with the knowledge to dissect the kind of people that we are and dissect what our habits are and what that means. Yeah. Unless you went to school to be a therapist or a psychiatrist, right, you are not mentally equipped to unpack everything on a educational and on a intellectual level the way that therapists are. So in maybe my 5th conversation or whatever, my therapist started to recognize a trend in my behavior when it came to issues of confrontation, things that made me uncomfortable. And since then, I've been able to change my approach and ultimately change my ways. Yeah. And it's been super enlightening. And it's like, it just makes me feel a lot more powerful, because it's like, now I know what situations or how to avoid certain situations. And if they come about, I know how to unpack them in a way that's not going to drive me crazy. And so it's just like, I feel like, go to a therapist if you want to discover more of your superpowers. That's my thing. Like, in my opinion, it's always like, I don't ever want to give anybody else in this world enough power to the point where their words can get me to act physically. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say about my mom, my dead relative, my dead friend, as crazy as some of the things people say. I don't ever want to be controlled by somebody else's words. Not to that point, because people would turn around and press charges if you physically act after they said the craziest things. I always want to be in control of myself. And I feel like therapy is the ultimate vehicle to get you to that superpower.
I can't agree with you 100%, bro. Because, for me personally, I've been on that journey as well for like 8 to 10 months now. And it's been a healing journey for me as well. In many instances where I log off for that hour and tap into my emotions, tap into the way the process works, connecting into some of the early trauma that I didn't know it was called trauma. Right. It doesn't have to be a huge wow moment in your life in order for it to be called trauma. And I started to lean on that a lot more. And I started to say, oh, wow, like, this is actually helping me connect the dots in my earlier childhoods, right? Going back to high school days, I was always getting talkative in a lot of these report cards. All my life, I thought being talkative was a bad thing. Right. And eventually, to your point, right, I found out that that's actually my superpower. Connecting with people in real time, being able to provide a space for them to be vulnerable, authentic, and show their true self up. And it wasn't until I finally realized the self-discovery work that I needed to do to make sure that anytime I share a space with somebody like the one we're sharing today, I want to make sure that my energy is in control, it's displaying good energy, so I'm able to also get the same reciprocated back. And all of this work, man, you're doing all this healing work, all this, and you touched upon a lot of other work that you're doing now, right? All the fire is transitioning to this work of art, to this first ever official exhibit that you did in Miami, right? Tell us about the experience and how the art came from for example, like at your home and transitioning into this exhibit? Like, how did that evolution, how did that journey and opportunity come about?
So I think I've always been a super creative person. So when I combine that with having this incident of the fruit and having people from all over the internet come at me, I think it was just the perfect storm because I had my subject material for the art. I had the motivation. All I need to do, if I ever got like writer's block or artist block when I was creating the art, just check my DMs. And then I see go dribbling traffic or monkey or some craziness. I'm locked in again. So it was pretty easy to stay locked in. Mind you, this collection took 11 months to create. So I spent 11 months pretty much straight just thinking about how I wanted to display certain messages, who I wanted to highlight. And ultimately, I knew that I'm a professional athlete who is using this platform to speak out against issues, and I'm getting ridiculed for it. So I'm going to spend the next X amount of time researching athletes who did the same, who are doing it now and who did it before me. And I'm going to highlight them in this collection of work. And so that's how I came to the decision that I was going to highlight guys like Muhammad Ali, women like Althea Gibson, Serena Williams, Wilma Rudolph, guys like Colin Kaepernick, LeBron, Jackie Robinson. But they've all done what I aspire to do on a much larger scale. But nevertheless, like, somebody's got to do that work. And athletes have a unique ability to connect with people and to connect people. Like, how many times have people met friends at a sporting event? Like, how many times have people met really, really close friends through actually just playing pickup with random people? Like, basketball, one of the things why I love basketball is because it has the ability to bring people together, even if they don't speak the same language. Like, you take a vacation to a different country and you don't even speak the same language, but if there's a court and you want to go hoop, you want to go play pickup, now all of a sudden you're playing with people who you've never met before, who you can't even really communicate with, but you're sharing the next 2-3 hours doing the same thing without saying a word, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
Like there are only so many spaces where you can walk into that space, not say a word, and we could be doing the same thing for 3 hours with each other, bro.
Having mad fun.
Yeah. And so, honestly, sports in general is really like that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like athletes have such a unique ability to bring people together through their sport, through their excellence on the field or on the court, and then at the same time marry a lot of these important issues and messages that need to get out to people who really need to hear them.
Wow. Well, which one was the first art piece you started with?
It was the Colin Kaepernick and Muhammad Ali like multi-perspective piece.
That one was fire. Beastie.
I appreciate it, bro.
And then tell the audience a little bit more, and we'll show it up, in a clip and stuff, so they have an idea and stuff. But like, how did it all develop? What did you make it out of?
It took 2 months. It's made out of copper wire, but I didn't do I had the completely wrong wire first. So it took me a while to figure out the right material to use so that I could bend it, but it would hold its shape. And so ultimately that's the copper wire is what came down to it. But I really wanted to like explore the generational activism between Ali and Kaepernick, because I feel like there's such a strong parallel, there's such a strong connection between the two and what they've done and the sacrifices that they've made. What was at stake is a little bit different during Ali's time than versus Kaepernick's time. but ultimately they never participated in their sport again.
Right.
After becoming extremely vocal, and they took stands for things that really mattered.
Yeah.
And their impact rings to this day. Like, we still talk about Ali and his boxing greatness, but we also talk about his greatness as an activist. And we still talk about Colin Kaepernick, and he hasn't thrown a football in an NFL jersey since 2016, 2015.
Yeah, true.
So it's those kind of things that speak louder and go further than what they do in the ring or on the field.
Wow. You know, it's crazy that you say that too, because I almost find this connection there as well, right? When you spoke about what you were experiencing, it channeled this energy to now displaying your art in these museums, right? Like the art of an athlete and what you're building now. But also, in a way, we're seeing the impact that you're having now as well, right? When you think about this and you reflect back at that moment when you had this, you know, you still have the fire, but in this moment where you were displaying and, you know, and sharing your story, do you see the impact it has had on others since then?
For sure. I think, you know, so a lot of my close friends came to the show in Miami, and two of them pulled me aside and they were like, yo, like, I knew like you were creating artwork, but I wasn't ready for how like insightful or how impactful and educational that this show would be. Because all of the pieces are rooted in history and importance, and there's a story behind each piece.
Right.
And I should rephrase that. There's a story behind each person who is highlighted by each piece. And so my goal was to tell that person's story through that piece. And I think a lot of people left that particular art exhibition knowing something that they previously didn't about athletes speaking out, or about Jackie Robinson, or about Wilma Rudolph, or Naomi Osaka, or Tommy Smith and John Carlos, whoever. And so that's really all I can ask. Like, my main goal, and I can honestly say this, was more so to get the message across rather than to sell a piece. And I think that's why the art was more powerful than it was. I think if I was more sale-driven, then I would be worried about different things. Not necessarily the wrong things, but different things. I think I would have tried to highlight different aspects of these athletes.
And that just goes back to the intent behind your purpose and what you do on a day-to-day, right? And it's purpose-driven. It's you displaying something that matters to you, because not only were you experiencing a lot of the things in general, right? But the intent is to educate. The intent is to inspire. The intent is for you to build this legacy that you're building versus selling things or you know, attracting the next dollar. But again, when you're at your ultimate purpose, the money will come. You know, but I'm very thankful that you lean into the intent about educating people and allowing people to feel inspired, because more blessings, more opportunities will continue to develop with that same mission and value at the forefront.
And I think what you're doing is doing that in the same way, because you're giving people an opportunity to talk about their story. You're highlighting their stories, and you're giving them an opportunity to share the knowledge and the lessons that they've acquired in their life. So for all the people that are watching, you know, they might pick up something from this conversation. They might pick up something from other conversations. So, you know, and it's the same kind of work. It's just a different vessel.
I appreciate you sharing that, man.
It's true, bro.
You know, and I definitely accept that, and I appreciate that, you know, because oftentimes we're so quick to be like, nah, bro, I'm trying to be like you know what I'm saying? But but I accept that, you know, because that means a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? As giving you a platform today We never know who's watching. We never know who's going to learn something from it. But we never know that this could potentially inspire them to do whatever they want to do and accomplish their dreams.
Right.
And I'm a big believer that, no matter what it is, we're all here to serve each other. If you could be a helping hand, then do it. Mm-hmm. Don't think twice. You know what I'm saying? Denzel said this one thing. He said, the most selfish thing you could do is help somebody else. Why is it selfish? Is because the instant gratification feeling that you get makes you feel mad good. You know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to say I appreciate that, man.
It's true, bro.
In the last couple of questions here, we talked about so much. What do you want to leave the people with from this conversation?
It's crazy that I think that question transitions so well from what we were just talking about, because the impact that you have, the legacy that you leave, your efforts and ability to make people feel a certain way, to pass on knowledge, those are all the things that really matter. Art is great, basketball is great, but at the end of the day, it's really about what are you leaving with the people around you? What are you leaving with the people that are coming after you? So my biggest thing is always what is my legacy? What do I want my legacy to be? And whether we know it or not, we have way more control over our legacy than we like to estimate or believe. So my thing for people is always think about what you want to be remembered for, and if that aligns with what you're doing now, then stay on that track. And if you don't feel like it totally lines up, then just figure out how you want that to line up with what you're doing, which is why it's even more important to be doing things that you want to be doing, things that you love. Because if I'm out here making money working with plants and I don't like plants, it significantly hinders my ability to leave the legacy that I want to leave, to have the impact that I want to have, because I don't even like doing what I'm doing right now. So all of you guys who are observing me not liking what I'm doing, that's not the impact that I want to have. That's not a legacy I want to leave. I don't want y'all to think we need to do things because they need to be done, even if we don't like them. Right. I want everybody around me to do whatever the hell they like to do whatever makes them super happy and passionate, even if it doesn't make you money. Because eventually there will come a time where that passion is lucrative. And it'll only be lucrative because people before you did it when it wasn't lucrative. There was a time where podcasts and having conversations like this weren't lucrative, and it only got there because people loved having these conversations so much that they didn't care that they were making money.
Right.
They did it for the love of it. And eventually they grew a platform that was large enough for people to be like, oh, wait a minute, we need to be putting money in this. Same thing with dunking. For a while, there was no money in dunking. But, then people saw that there were platforms that were growing and there was money that could be put into it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden there's a space where you can make money dunking. And again, I always credit the people who were passionate about it before you could make money off of it. So that's probably my biggest thing.
Boom. Bro, you couldn't have said it any better, man. And I want to take this time, right? And I think it flows very well here, where I want to take the time to give you your flowers. This is a platform where we create it and we give people their flowers because the work that you're doing, on and off the field, it's super empowering. It's inspiring people. What you have to share in the presence and your legacy that you've already built is gonna one that's gonna be lasting forever. And I want to take the time to really give you your flowers, man, for speaking your truth, for being confident, for walking in your truth, and seeing what next holds for you. You know, so I wanted to take the time to just share that with you.
I appreciate that. That really does mean a lot, and I always feel like we don't give each other our flowers in the present enough. Like it's always, and I hate it that it's this way, but it's always like after something happens to somebody, most of the time when people pass away, then everybody wants to reflect on like, wow, like this person is great, and it's not even that reflection isn't genuine, because the reflection is definitely genuine. It's just that like, why are we waiting? Like I always, and I think part of that maybe is, people are too prideful to give other people their flowers, which sucks. So whenever somebody, has the humility to give the person across from them their flowers while they're here, it definitely hits a little bit more. So I appreciate that, and I hope that like the work you're doing, like conversations like this are the most necessary, because it shows people that like, one, they don't gotta come into this studio to have a conversation like this with people around them. Like they have it tonight.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so sometimes you just need a little kick. Like you just need a little example of how important it is, and how to, be vulnerable, and how to listen. Like you're a great listener.
Thank you.
And I think like, you're really setting the example for people at home or wherever they are watching this, how to have important combos like this. So
man,
I appreciate it, bro.
I appreciate that, bro.
Sure.
And we do this on the show too, where, we actually guess who would you give your flowers to?
The list is too long, but I'm gonna start with you, because
Thank you, bro.
You're in front of me, and I'm gonna start with you over there as well.
My guy Wolf, yeah.
I think it's important, like you just have done, to set the example for giving people their flowers while they're in front of them. I think, some other people, I think about a lot of the athletes that are doing the work that isn't even necessarily recognized on a large scale. So like Scotty Lewis, Natasha Cloud, Gwen Berry. There's just so many people who I'd like to give. My little brother, I definitely want to shout him out. I think he's definitely, he's a freshman in college right now, so he's doing a lot. But I'm super proud of him, and watching him grow and, like take on a whole lot at the same time, it's been fun to watch, and it makes me proud. So, but yeah, just to name a few people who I want to give flowers to.
That's dope, man. That's beautiful, man. And thank you so much for sharing that. And in the last segment, we have this last segment here on the show. It's called the Hidden Gems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake it up. You're going to pick up a question. You're going to read it out loud and just hear what comes off the cuff.
All right.
Let's do it. So let's do that. No peeking. Just grab one. And
let's see what we got.
What you got?
It's so crazy. What impact do you want to leave on the world?
Wow.
I'm not going to lie. That's kind of crazy.
It's all connected, man.
It's all connected. I just think like it's crazy. If I could make this any clearer, I would probably say a few things. One would be, don't wait to figure out what you're passionate about. Cause you don't know how much time you have. Like you really don't. And it's crazy. Today is the 3-year anniversary of Kobe's passing, along with the other passenger, like his daughter and the other passengers that were in that tragic accident. But
rest in peace.
Yeah, for real. But but like you just never know how much time you have. So like I feel like every day that goes by and you're doing something that you know in your core you don't like doing, you're wasting a day. If you're around people that you know you don't enjoy being around, but you're still letting that linger, you're not getting the most out of that day. So that would be my first thing. Figure out what you love and be around it. And then secondly, like just put other people like before yourself. I feel like so often we're always thinking about like me, like how can I benefit me? How does that benefit me? And I think we're kind of underestimating the ability of other people to fill that void and to make us feel satisfied and to make us feel whole. Like, I think if we become a little bit more selfless, then kind of like what Denzel is saying, it like
Word.
It's like a cycle. It's like a circle, I should say. It's like I put you before me, and I make sure that you good. You make sure that I'm good, and now everybody's good.
Word.
As opposed to if I operate like I'm not really worried about what Christian's doing. If I can make sure that I'm straight, then you're not feeling the way that you should be. And if I'm a caring person, then I'm not feeling the way that I should be. So those would probably be the two other things that I would like to throw in there in terms of like the impact that I want to have. I want everybody to feel loved and to do what they're loving.
Yo, Max, man, I appreciate your time, your energy, the space, and just thank you for being present, you know what I'm saying, throughout this conversation. And we can't wait to see, what the future holds for you, man. Keep doing what you love, and we're going to continue to support you along the way. So,
my God, I appreciate it, bro.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Well, there you have it. That was Off the Cuff with Maxwell Pearce.